Am I crazy to think that Cora Jade, WWE NXT star, reminds me of this former WWE star? Because in this video, I'm going to break it down. Now, Cora Jade is someone that maybe you're familiar with, maybe not. Cora Jade, obviously in NXT, she is one of the best heels in all of pro wrestling right now. She's severely underrated. And she actually had been sidelined since July 2023 before returning at Deadline. And that's great. And she's really, really good. And Booker T actually got me thinking of this question and this comparison. And that's what I wanted to talk about in this video because I thought it was interesting. So, who is this former WWE star he's talking about? Well, let's take a step back because the WWE women's division has undergone massive changes, massive transformation over the last decade. Long is the Divas era. Jesus, do you remember the butterfly title? Oh, that thing was hideous. And you had the women's revolution and the evolution. And you had stars like Becky Lynch and Charlotte Flair and Bayley and Sasha Banks and AJ Lee and Natalia and all of these stars who wanted to change the women's division. They wanted to make the women's division serious. They wanted the company to take them seriously. They wanted the company to book them just like the men. They wanted to have matches just like the men. Most of the time, high profile, your Charlottes, your Baileys, your Beckys, your Rheas, your Biancas, your Asukas, most of the time when they share the ring with each other, they have some of the best matches of the night. AJ Lee is who I am talking about because Booker T got me thinking. And this is not a huge swing by him because they look very similar. But he kind of dove into it, and I want to talk about it because obviously, from an appearance standpoint, they look very familiar or similar, I should say. Similar, not familiar. You get what I'm saying? And Booker T was on his Hall of Fame podcast where he opened up about Cora Jade's return at Deadline and also noted that she reminds him a lot of the former Divas champion in AJ Lee. This is what he had to say. The thing with Cora is you could tell she's a star. She's going to be a player in this business. Even once she gets to the main roster, there's something about Cora that just stands out. She's different than most of the girls on the roster. She reminds me of AJ Lee so much. She reminds me of that firecracker that was just herself and unapologetic. And he made this, I'm going to go out and do it like this, whether you like it or not type of girl. So I'm glad that Cora's back because she's always been one of my favorites. Of course, everybody needs to work on certain things. I can't wait to get her under my tutelage a little bit, get her on some film study one day and work with her. She does a lot of things so well, but there's always certain things you can work on. End quote. And I agree. She has a lot of upside. In fact, when CM Punk was at Deadline, he was backstage at the Performance Center. He did a digital exclusive segment with Punk. Most notably, 8 years prior, Cora Jade went to a autograph signing with Punk, and she had him sign something, and she lost it. She started crying. She could barely talk. It was a heartfelt moment because she met her, one of the people that she looked up to, one of her idols. She was also a big fan of AJ Lee. She's actually dressed up as AJ Lee at several NXT live events whenever they do the Halloween costume battle royale every year. Speaking of AJ Lee, when Punk was back for the very first time on Monday Night Raw in almost a decade to do his first promo following his return at Survivor Series, Punk talked about how he's a changed man, wanted to prove people that he still is the best in the world, and he also made a reference to his wife by calling her April, because that's her real first name, aka AJ Lee. causing fans to think that this may have hinted that she could be returning to the company. A company in which she first started working for in 2009, where she was in the developmental system at the time, FCW, and it was later NXT, before being called up to the main roster in 2011, where she won the Divas title 3 times and held the title for an overall record of 406 days. Now, she left WWE in 2015 and retired due to health issues. Keep in mind that was about a year and a half post CM Punk's departure from the company, a company in which fired him on his wedding day with AJ Lee. She's worked on some comic books. She actually wrote her own biography in 2017. And at one point, she was part of the WOW promotion, Women's of Wrestling, when they relaunched before departing. And at the time, like I said, there was a lot of speculation. Is AJ Lee coming back? Yada, yada, yada. Would she make an appearance at the Women's Royal Rumble match? Yada, yada, yada. PW Insider reported at the time that there was no discussion at the time of her coming in. And you should be reminded that when Punk first returned to pro wrestling in 2021 and joined AEW, there was this same speculation that his wife may follow him in making a return to wrestling. But that wasn't the case then, and it just simply doesn't appear to be the case now. Do I think you should rule that possibility out entirely? No. Do I want to see AJ Lee return to the ring? Of course. A phenomenal talker. One of the best female talkers in the history of that women's division. She was a very, very good wrestler. They used her in a significant way on television. I mean, if you think about it, she was a Raw GM at one point. She was paired with Daniel Bryan, aka Bryan Danielson. That really kind of shot her up the card. She was aligned with Dolph Ziggler and Big E. She was there. She was ringside for Dolph Ziggler. Well, I don't know about ringside, but she was aligned with him. I digress. When he won the World Heavyweight title on a Monday Night Raw event in 2013? By cashing in his Money in the Bank briefcase, pinning Alberto Del Rio, and winning the title. So what she can bring to the company is priceless. At a time where CM Punk is doing a lot of backstage work in terms of like with NXT talent and reportedly wanting to be a mentor, I could see AJ Lee coming back and being a mentor to NXT women. I think that would be a really, really fun role. As far as Cora Jade, I think she has a ton of potential. I think she's going to be a superstar for the company going forward, especially when she gets on the main roster. Let me know down in the comments area below, do you agree about this comparison?